A wagga wagga wagga. Wagga wagga wagga. Fozzie the Bear. He should be on this list. Hardest working bear in show business, baby. Oh, let's get into this. Don't forget to hit the like button once again. Here we go. And the reason why I brought this to this platform today is because of a very major reason. You want to hear what it is? The major reason I done this is because they created a list, right? And in this list, they wanted to tell us and the entire world who was the funniest comedians of all time. First, they did funniest black comedians of all time. Then they went to funniest comedians of all time. Once it was all insulting with this list. Like, why would they distinct? I don't see the funniest Mexican comedians or Hispanic comedians of all time. Why'd you make the funniest black? Then separate that and then make another list, but that included the blacks and the funniest comedians of all time. Find that to be quite weird. Now, you guys are in for a treat because we finna get into this. I'm not seeing notifications pop up or things that should have went through that didn't. Hold on, we're gonna get there, good people. Be patient. Now, I've seen a lot of people say Paul Mooney. Somebody said Eddie Griffin. Another person said Cosby. Seen a lot of those. But what we need to focus on, that's the first time I ever heard somebody say that. Now, I'm going to tell you, one of you guys have already nailed who they had at number one. Now, I'm going to tell you now, I have not made a list. But let's take a look at their list, shall we? Since we're here. Let's take a look at their list. Now, we go to, how many they got? Like 50 some people on this list. At the very bottom of the list, they have a comedian called Baron Vaughn. Then LaRoyce Hawkins. And somebody called D Militant at 52. And somebody named Shashir Zamata. Right? Then they have Reggie Watts. Then someone named Nicole Pryor at 49. At 48, they have Lonnie Love. Out the D. Lonnie Love some of that white meat. Lonnie Love. Hit the like button, good people. Then Slappy White. Rest in peace, Slappy. Straight out of B More is 46. Gerard Carmichael is at 45. Little Duval, they have him at 44 of all time. Donnell Rollins is at 43. Leslie Jones is at 42. At 41, they got Little Rel. Nipsey Russell. Right. That's the ride comedian. He always used to throw the word right in there. Right. Number 39, DC Young Fly. Now, 38, Whoopi Goldberg. 37, Jay Farrell. Jay Farrell or whatever. Godfrey is at 36. Corey Holcomb is at 35. JB Smooth is at 34. D. Ray Davis is at 33. Tiffany Haddish is at 32. This list is already absurd, isn't it? This list is already absurd. All right. So we will continue down this list. Monique, they have at 31. At 30, they have Hannibal Buress. At 29, they have Craig Robinson. At 28, they got Flip Wilson. At 20, that was 28, yeah. 27, they got Deion Cole. At 26, they got Keenan Ivory Wayans. At 25, George Wallace. 24 is Ari Spears. 23, Steve Harvey. 22, Paul Mooney. 21, Wanda Sykes. 20, D.L. Hewley. Number 19 of all time, Lavelle Crawford. Number 18, Tracy Morgan. Number 17, Robin Harris. Number 16, Patrice O'Neal. Number 15, Mike Epps. Number 14, Charlie Murphy. Number 14 of all time is Charlie Murphy. Not following this or what? There is some super weird activity happening on my page right now. This is crazy. Yeah, this is crazy. They just did some crazy activity, spam my page, did all kind of stupid stuff. Moving right along. Number 13. is Jamie Foxx. Number 12, Cedric the Entertainer. Number 11, Eddie Griffin. Number 10, Kevin Hart. Number 9, Chris Tucker. Number 8, Katt Williams. Number 7, Red Fox. Number 6, Martin Lawrence. Number 5, Chris Rock. Number 4, Bernie Mac. Number 3, Richard Pryor. Number 2, Eddie Murphy. And number 1, in case you didn't already know, is Dave Chappelle. Now, how many people are willing to bet that black people did not make this list of the top black comedians of all time? They forgot to put the top black comedians of all time according to white people. They forgot to include the rest of it. Not one time did you hear Cosby's name on the list. Not one time did you hear Dick Gregory. You ain't even hear Earthquake. Red Fox's name was mentioned. He said once they said Little Rail, I knew it was a white people's list. Once they said Little Rail. I'll drink green tea to that. Wow. Now, some more wasn't on this list, but Tiffany Haddish was. Interesting. Of all time. This isn't like current year or anything. They saying all time. So because it got a lot of people's attention, people had to change it up a little bit. But how could you not and have DL Hughley so high? That was crazy. I didn't hear Dick Gregory name. I mean, they didn't even put Mom's Mabel in there. Hell, John Witherspoon was funnier than half of the people in there. There was no mention of Damon Wayans. They put Keenan Ivory Wayans over Damon. I would never do that. They ain't even put Anthony Anderson in there, and they loved him, I thought. But he was funnier than some of the people that was on the list. What about David Allen Greer? If that was the case, no mention of Sinbad. But you got Jay Farrell on this list? No mention of Robert Townsend? Tommy Davidson? Hell, Deion Cole should have made the list if that was the case. What kind of list are we doing here, people? Mm-hmm. Well, they got in trouble. See, when they did that, they had to make their best comedians of all time, like, we got to cover this up. We got to come with the best comedians. But you got the same people in there, and it's the same problem. Not these lists are never going to work because everybody likes certain type of comedy. One of the funniest guys I heard that wasn't on the list was TK Kirkland. TK Kirkland always cracks me up, but I know people that can't stand him. TK Kirkland, man, that dude is hilarious. Drop dead funny. And TK, I watched TK come up and do stand up, and I watched his show, and he blew everybody off the stage. And that stage had, what was it? It was TK, Bruce. It was TK Kirkland, Bruce. Man, it was a lot of comedians there that day. Deion Cole, I think, was on that show. It was Deion Cole. It was another guy that came up, and he came and went. Don't know what ended up happening to him, but he came and went. But TK Kirkland was incredible. Now, Deion Cole, he could always hold his own because he's from Chi-Town. He's from Chicago. Chicago, if you can make it in Chicago being a comedian, you can make it anywhere. This was it. If you couldn't burn here, you weren't going to make it. Oh, yeah, he always kills me when he bring out the list of jokes. I was working on some jokes before I got here. I wrote them down. I'm going to share them with you. Have you ever thought about why Arby's is for R&B for roast beef? It's funny because here in Chicago, we've actually had that conversation before. And we think that's why it was called Arby's for roast beef. But they just spelled it Arby's. Sinbad is probably one of the most underrated stage performers ever as far as comedy. And it's clean. To perform all that comedy and to do it clean for all those years and to be stellar is, man, that's like incredible. Classic stand-ups, completely funny. DC Curry, he was on there. DC Curry was not funny, man. They like booed him off stage. Y'all better move. I mean, Chris Rock used to nail it, man, but he was becoming one of those he was becoming one of those comedians that once you heard him, you know, you didn't think Chris Rock would ever get to the point where he's at now. And he did, and he wouldn't have grown until he met Wanda. And he met Joyner, and they start working with him and working with his comedy and helping him out with his routines. Mhm. Not really. Not the way I look at it. I mean, Chris Rock has some funny stand up. Oh no, Chris had some funny stand-ups, man. But it was all his stand-up was about bad relationships and race. Normally everything was about race. Just all race jokes. You know, but they were funny and they were landing. A lot of his stuff he was doing was landing, but it was just all race jokes. But they weren't really like someone was just mean. So what Wanda Sykes would do was help him become a comedian. You know, he was funny on stage and had some funny jokes, but yeah, that's gonna work in the hood. But a lot of those jokes ain't gonna work at Radio's Music City Hall, you know. And a lot of black comedians can't cross over to both lanes where both sides will find them funny. They find a common ground to say, okay, he got jokes for us, he got jokes for us. You know, and that's what makes a comedian complete when he can have everybody laugh. That's very funny. No, somebody's talking about Takeoff right now. I haven't really seen anything. I was watching a little bit of the trial. Absolutely. Well, you got to look at it. You're talking about one. Mhm. Well, you're never gonna. It's hard to even gauge that. So to make a list of the top comedians of all time, it's like probably the top that you would listen to. Like it's weird to me that someone could rank Dave Chappelle over Richard Pryor. But the thing is that is this based on sketch comedy? Is it based on, what is it based around? Like Richard's stand-up is way better than Dave's. Way better. Because Richard had a style that was more similar to Dave's, where it's more freeform than constructed, like written out. Like some of it, Richard just be like, he remembers some of it, then a lot of it, he just go. Most of it was off experience. Richard could make jokes about himself, what he was like doing drugs, what he was like when he took a trip to Africa and all this funny stuff that happened. He will create events of comedy and things that didn't happen around his life or around him because Richard did a few things. It's kind of hard to have material when you're just sitting in the house or you going from studio to studio and there's no real, it's really hard for them to have that connection. One of the best comedians of all time, and that was definitely would be George Carlin. I always talk about Carlin because he was the smart comedian. We call him the common sense comic. He had common sense, like real common sense that people ignore nowadays. Dave is good because Dave is more of a writer. He's more freeform, but he's also good at writing and structure. And when you deal with structured comedy, you're looking at a situation where things could go left really fast. And they were good. They just weren't, they didn't have the it factor. They couldn't get over. Rodney Dangerfield, he got over because he started talking about himself. I tell you, I get no respect at all. I called the suicide line. They put me on hold. Dangerfield, baby. John Ritter was different. He's good at his comedy is not like stand up and John Ritter is physical comedy, like Jerry Lewis. He reminds you of a young Jerry Lewis. Those comedians are rare and it's an art form what they do. They're very talented in the field of art. Like they had one episode where Jack did like all his own physical comedy stunts where he was falling over on Three's Company. People just, it went on for like 10, 15 minutes where he was just having an attack, doing flips, knocking stuff off. They was like at some hotel or something. That thing went on and just to show people the type of range he had with physical comedy. He was great with it. And back then, comedians were taught like that, how to do physical comedy, fall and all that. Where most stand-up comics, they worry about stage and performance. Oh, Bill Burr? His stand-up can blow away about 50, 60. I mean, he's funnier than Gary Owens any day. You give me Bill Burr and Gary Owens, he will blow Gary Owens out of the water. Yeah, so the list is crazy. You know, Bill Murray. A lot of them put Bill Murray, Mel Brooks, Ricky Gervais. You know, but this is like the worldwide list of who they think is the best. They put Carol Burnett, Ron White. Ron White's funny. I'll give you that. And then they got Bill Engvall on there. Here's your sign. You just might be a redneck. Larry David. Who they got? Zach Galifianakis on there. Jeff Dunham. Wanda Sykes. Dennis Leary. Dennis Leary, too, is great. Dennis Leary was great because he was so quick. Jerry Seinfeld, to me, the TV show saved him because Jerry is the most boringest comedian ever. Like he needs something. Like he's somebody who has a setup. He has all these lists of jokes, and he writes. He's somebody that's not really. It's got to be written for Jerry. It can't be off the head. Jerry can put you to sleep and bore you, or he can entertain you with a couple of jokes. You go, oh, that's funny. I'll see where that's going. But that's a good way he ended it. You know, setup, punchline. It's very basic with Jerry. But you understand why blacks don't rotate over to Jerry Seinfeld instantly. But you see, for us to be successful, or for us to be great, we have to conform to all sides. They don't have to. As long as the Jewish people get the jokes, they're good. Jerry's great. Well, Kramer. The thing is, Kramer was a better on-stage presence. He was really Kramer in real life, on the walls, off the wall, comedy. It's just like he was the eyeball of it. Like Christopher Lloyd was the funniest guy on Taxi. Danny DeVito was great, but the funniest one on there was Christopher Lloyd's character. And Jimmy Walker, who was a stand-up comic. People forgot about Jimmy Walker. Jimmy Walker was funny. But once you've been known as JJ, that kind of ruins your whole stand-up life. Right now, I could ask anybody right now who might be black or even white, name me your top 10 black comedians of all time. If you tried to make that list, all 10 of you, everybody in here will have a whole different 10 instantly. I mean, Carrot Top just really came in and did Gallagher's whole act. Gallagher, I'm ready to smash some fruit. Y'all ready to get crazy? See, a lot of people get things confused. A lot of you guys might think Tom Hanks is a stand-up comic. He's not. He's an actor who was good at comedy. He was never a comedian. This happens. This gets people confused all the time. Will Ferrell is an actor who was never a comedian, who's very good at doing comedy. There is a huge difference. Okay? People who have great comedic timing to make you believe that they were comedians. Like Vince Vaughn was never a stand-up comic. Vince Vaughn is an actor, but he's funny. They got great comedic timing, but they're not somebody, you can't put them out there. Yeah, most of these guys go out and try to do a stand-up bit because they never really did it before. Like some actors had never done improv comedy before. And improv acting. They've never done improv a day in their life. He said hamburger. I mean, Dave Chappelle was doing stand-up when he was young, man. And Eddie told him, man, you'll be great. You just got to write your jokes down. If you was to write your jokes down, Eddie knew right away that he wasn't writing his jokes. And Dave was just blown away by that fact. That was one of Adam Sandler's worst movies. Adam Sandler done stand-up. He was a stand-up comic. He's different. It didn't really pan out for him in the comic world. Even the guy that produces him was his roommate, Evan Goldstein. Yeah, Evan Goldberg. You had Seth Rogen, all of these guys, and Superbad is about them. Evan and Seth. Yeah, they were going to be stand-up comics. They were going to be the best in the world. If I had to make a list, my top 10 favorites of all time. Uh, I can never say Robin Harris because Robin Harris came and went too quick. You know, it's hard to put him and say he's the greatest of all. I couldn't do that. Some of the greatest to ever like get on the stage and just dominate it and just melt the stage. Greatest stand-up, Bernie would definitely be in my top 10. I'm from Chicago. I'm probably biased, but Bernie to me destroys every time he touches a microphone. And it didn't matter where he was at. He could be in South Carolina. He could be in Birmingham. He could be anywhere. And he didn't change. And people loved him. Whether he was white, Hispanic, people loved Bernie Mac. Red Fox, I wouldn't put in my top 10. Bill Cosby's in my top 10. I mean, Bill Cosby himself is probably still one of the greatest comedy albums ever made. Period. From start to finish. That's hilarious. So we did best rock. Rock is kind of up there. I think Rock's in the top 10. I would put him up there. Richard is number 1 by far. Richard Pryor, his albums is just it's Richard all day. Richard is number 1. Eddie's not number 2. Eddie's in there though. Eddie's in my top 10. But no, he's not number 1. That's like me putting Red Fox in the top 10. Right? I had like 2 of Red albums. I haven't heard enough of Red. Red was way past in there. Katt's in my top 10. Paul Mooney, Katt, Eddie Griffin, all of these guys are in my top 10. Ain't no way in hell you can make a damn list about top 10 comics and I'm not in that motherfucker. The hell wrong with you, backward ass boy? Just as long as you didn't say Kevin Hart. Because if you said Kevin Hart, then I would really have to go in on you. Hey man, I remember 5-6 years ago, people came down hard, maybe longer than that, on Mike Epps. They came so down on Mike Epps, he ain't funny. I mean, this was like after he had the peak of his career, he came down, then came back up like crazy. Because Mike Epps' name had went cold. Nobody wanted to deal with him. He was hard to work with. They didn't want to put him in movies no more. I'm like, man, what's going on with Mike? And everybody was, Mike, man, he kept saying funny and this and that. And then I remember he did the New Year's show 2 years in a row here in Chicago. And they was ready to beat him down. I mean, Katt Williams did a whole weekend for New Year's show. And then if you was here for the earlier show, each show was different. Every show Katt Williams did, he never did the same jokes. That's what was crazy. And he was funny each time. So we got to count to the ball dropped and all that. And the thing about Katt is he was able to talk about current events. And this was right when that chick had this real politician chick. She was causing a lot of trouble. And she got sniped in like Mexico or something. This was right before New Year's. And man, he came out and had the whole joke. What was that woman thinking? And somebody gave him some weed, and then they brought him a drink. They were giving him a fifth. Oh yeah, man, he had tons of jokes. He was like, man, what is this, man? I'm trying to go home tonight. You gonna have me outside in the cold out here in Chicago? I mean, damn, it's not even snow on the ground. It's just cold for no reason in Chicago. It looks like a beautiful day, and you step 1 foot out the door, and it reminds you it is not a beautiful day. Oh man, he was hilarious here in Chicago, man. He was like, and yet they know you ain't from here. Everybody else is able to go around and function. They like the cold don't even bother them. They so used to it. Yeah, man, yeah. Let me get a cigarette. And then they look at you and you like in a ball. You from out of town, ain't you? Man. He's like, in Chicago, man. They don't even. He's like, you be passing your stops, everything. You just jump off the wind. Oh. LeBron is a comedian. He'll pull it off in Space Jam too. I saw Space Jam 2, or his version of it, when he got injured on the court. LeBron James Space Jam.